I'm about to show you how one cheap scoop of powder can turn a lawn full of ugly broadleaf weeds into a cleaner, greener yard in as little as 2 days. And the part that sounds completely ridiculous is this. Your grass usually comes out looking better, not worse. Not scorched, not thinned out, not covered in dead patches. Better. Darker green, richer color, healthier look. If you've been fighting dandelions, clover, plantain, chickweed, creeping Charlie, or those flat leafy invaders that seem to spread faster than your grass can fill in, what I'm about to explain is going to sound like one of those fake internet claims people make to get clicks. It's not. And once you understand why it works, you're going to look at the lawn care aisle very differently from now on. Because the product I'm talking about is cheap, really cheap, usually just a few dollars for enough to make multiple applications. It's sold in plain packaging. Sometimes it's not even marketed as a weed killer first. You can find it at hardware stores, garden centers, and online without hunting for some secret supplier. And yet most homeowners walk right past it. Not because it doesn't work, because nobody takes the time to explain what it actually does. So, before I tell you exactly what it is, let me save you from making the mistake a lot of people make when they hear a claim like this. They get excited, rush out, buy the product, mix it too strong, spray at the wrong time, hit the wrong surfaces, or use it for the wrong kind of weeds, and then they say the method doesn't work. That's not what I want for you. I want you to understand the rule that makes this whole thing possible. Because once that clicks in your head, you stop guessing. You stop buying random bottles with flashy labels, and you stop handing your money to an industry that makes its best profits when you stay confused. Let's start with the real problem. The problem with weeds has never been how to kill plants. That part is easy. Hot water kills plants. Salt kills plants. Strong vinegar kills plants. A torch kills plants. A shovel kills plants. The hard part is not killing weeds. The hard part is killing the weeds you hate without hurting the grass you want to keep. That is the entire game in lawn care. Selective control. That's why this topic matters so much, and that's why homeowners spend way too much money year after year trying different sprays that promise clean results and deliver mixed outcomes. Most weed control falls into 2 big categories. The first category is the blunt force option. These are products or home remedies that damage almost anything green they touch. Yes, they can kill the weed. They can also hit the grass surrounding it and leave you with brown scars all over your yard. That means you either spot treat carefully one plant at a time, which takes forever, or you accept collateral damage. The second category is the premium selective option. These are the branded lawn weed killers with the polished labels, big promises, and price tags that make people assume they must be the serious solution. Some of them do work. I'm not pretending they don't. But many homeowners end up paying a lot for chemistry they do not understand, applying it without confidence, and repeating that cycle every season because they were never taught the underlying biology. And that brings us to the product almost nobody talks about with the energy it deserves. Ferrous sulfate. You may also see it called iron sulfate, lawn iron, or even moss control depending on the packaging. Different label, same basic material. And for broadleaf weeds in a lawn, it can be shockingly effective for how inexpensive it is. Here's why. Broadleaf weeds and turf grass are not built the same way. That difference is the whole secret. Broadleaf weeds have wide, exposed leaf surfaces. Think about a dandelion, a clover patch, plantain, or ground ivy. Those leaves spread outward like little solar panels. They catch light, hold moisture, and when you spray them, they catch a lot of whatever lands on them. Grass is different. Grass grows in narrow, upright blades, smaller surface area, different growth habit, different response. When you spray a properly mixed ferrous sulfate solution across a lawn, those broadleaf weeds absorb a concentrated dose of iron across their leaf surfaces. At that level, the iron becomes too much for their tissue to handle well. The leaves darken, scorch, collapse, and start dying back fast. But the grass doesn't respond the same way. Instead of taking that same hit in the same way, The lawn often benefits from some of the iron. Iron is a micronutrient tied to healthy green color and chlorophyll production. So while the weeds are getting hammered, the grass can look deeper green and more vigorous. That's the moment most people stop and say, "Wait a second. You're telling me the same spray that punishes the weeds can improve the appearance of the lawn?" Yes, that is exactly why this feels like a trick when you first hear it. But it's not a trick. It's plant response. It's selective stress based on how different plants take in and handle that material. And once you know that, another question shows up immediately. If this is that useful, why doesn't everybody talk about it like it's the first thing homeowners should try? Because cheap products do not build giant marketing machines. That's the answer. There isn't much glamour in a low-cost mineral powder that can sit quietly on a bottom shelf and still solve a real lawn problem. You can't build the same kind of recurring brand addiction around something simple, inexpensive, and unsexy. There's more money in complicated programs, special formulas, seasonal bundles, and the constant suggestion that your lawn is one expensive bottle away from finally looking right. A cheap answer is bad for businesses that profit from expensive confusion. And that is why I love talking about this stuff. Because every time a homeowner learns a principle, instead of memorizing a brand name, they get harder to manipulate. And that matters. So if you like straightforward lawn advice that helps you spend less and get better results, subscribe right now, because that's what I do here. My name is Eli Yoder, and I'm not interested in making lawn care look complicated so people stay dependent. I'm interested in showing you what works, why it works, and how to avoid wasting money on the nonsense. And while you're here, drop a comment with the weed that's making you crazy this season. Dandelion, clover, plantain, creeping Charlie. Whatever it is, tell me what you're dealing with. Now let's talk about how to actually use ferrous sulfate the right way, because this is where results are made or lost. The general mixing ratio most homeowners use is 1 cup of ferrous sulfate powder per gallon of water. 1 cup, 1 gallon. That's the starting point that matters. Pour the water into your sprayer, add the powder, and mix until it fully dissolves. You want a uniform solution, not clumps sitting at the bottom. The liquid usually takes on a rusty amber tone, and that's what you want to see. A gallon of finished solution will usually cover somewhere around a couple hundred square feet, depending on how heavily you spray and how dense your lawn is. If you have a small front yard, you may need a few gallons. If you have a larger property, scale up carefully and keep your ratio consistent. And use a pump sprayer. Not a hose end sprayer. A pump sprayer gives you much better control. That matters because control is everything with this method. You are not trying to flood the yard. You are trying to coat leaf surfaces evenly. Set the nozzle to a fine spray so the solution lands as a mist, not a harsh stream. Then walk at a steady pace, sweeping evenly over the lawn. You do not need to crouch over every dandelion one by one. That's one of the biggest advantages here. You can treat the lawn broadly and let the broadleaf weeds react differently from the turf. That said, timing matters more than people realize. Do not spray in the heat of the day when the sun is high and the lawn is already stressed. Early morning is a great choice. Late afternoon or early evening can also work well. What you want is enough time for the solution to stay on the leaves and be absorbed instead of flashing off too fast in intense heat. If you spray in punishing midday sun, you increase stress and reduce control. And here's a rule you do not want to ignore. Do not water the lawn right after application. Give it at least 24 hours if possible. No sprinklers. No hose. And if rain is on the forecast within that window, wait for a better day. The whole point is contact time. If the solution gets washed off too early, you weaken the effect and wonder why the weeds are still standing. When you apply it correctly, the visual payoff starts quickly. That's another reason this kind of content spreads so fast. People love seeing fast evidence. Within the first day, many broadleaf weeds begin to lose that healthy green look. The leaves start darkening, edges can curl, spots show up, the plant looks offended. By the second day, a lot of common lawn weeds look scorched, blackened, or obviously in decline. And the grass? The grass often starts taking on a richer color. Not cartoon green, not fake neon, just a stronger, healthier-looking tone. That contrast is the magic moment. The weeds look worse while the lawn looks better. That is what makes people become believers. Now let me give you the part that actually builds trust, because if I only gave you the exciting part, I'd sound like every other hyped-up lawn video online. Ferrous sulfate is not a universal answer to every weed issue in every yard. It shines on broadleaf weeds. That means dandelions, white clover, plantain, chickweed, henbit, daisy-type weeds, ground ivy, creeping Charlie, and similar flat-leafed invaders are where this method really earns its reputation. But grassy weeds are different. Crabgrass is different. Goosegrass is different. Annual bluegrass is different. Quackgrass is different. Those weeds are much more similar to your desirable turf in structure and growth habit, which means ferrous sulfate is not the miracle solution there. If your main enemy is crabgrass, you need a different approach, usually focused on prevention and timing, not this treatment alone. That honesty matters, because if you tell people one product kills absolutely everything, they try it on the wrong target, get mediocre results, and assume the whole method is nonsense. No. Use the right tool for the right problem. If your lawn is full of broadleaf weeds, this is one of the smartest, low-cost tools you can keep in your arsenal. And here's a bonus most people discover almost by accident. It also hits moss hard. If you've got damp, shady sections where moss creeps in and starts taking over, ferrous sulfate can blacken that moss fast. That doesn't solve the underlying reason the moss likes that area. You still have to think about shade, drainage, and turf density. But as a direct moss knockback, it can be incredibly satisfying. Now let's talk about the warnings, because this is where grown-up lawn advice separates itself from hype. Warning number 1. This stuff stains. And I mean really stains. Concrete, pavers, patios, sidewalks, stone edges, clothing, gloves, hands, sprayer parts if you ignore them long enough. Ferrous sulfate contains iron, and when that iron oxidizes on hard surfaces, it can leave rust-colored marks that are miserable to look at and annoying to remove. So when you spray, be deliberate. Do not wave that wand around near your driveway like you're painting a fence. Keep your pattern controlled. If some solution lands on concrete, rinse it immediately. Not later, immediately. The difference between a quick rinse and, "I guess that stain is living there now," can be minutes. Warning number 2. Wear old clothes and gloves. This is not a fashion moment. If the spray gets on your shoes, pants, or fingertips, it can leave orange-brown staining that does not magically vanish on command. Protect yourself and make cleanup easier. Warning number 3. Keep pets and kids off the lawn until the application is dry. Usually a few hours is enough, depending on weather. Once it's dry, the situation is much better. But wet product on paws, skin, or little hands is unnecessary exposure and unnecessary mess. Play it safe. Warning number 4. Do not go crazy with the frequency. More is not always better. A second application later in the season can make sense if you have a heavy infestation or missed areas, but you do not want to hammer the same lawn again and again, thinking that if one treatment is good, 5 must be amazing. Iron affects more than the weeds. Overdoing it can contribute to soil issues over time, especially in already acidic conditions. Which leads to warning number 5, know your soil pH. If your soil is already quite acidic, repeated use of ferrous sulfate may not be the direction you want to push it. A simple pH test kit is cheap. Use one. Lawn care gets much easier when you stop treating the yard like a mystery and start testing the conditions you're working with. Now let me tell you why I personally became a believer in this method. A while back, I had an area of lawn that looked like it was losing a slow-motion war. Not because the grass was dead, because the weeds were just out competing it. Clover was everywhere, not a little patch here or there. I'm talking about the kind of spread where you stand back and realize a huge chunk of the yard is no longer behaving like turf. The grass was there, but it was getting swallowed. I tried the normal homeowner path first. Pull some by hand. Spray a little here. Try a natural remedy there. Watch some of it die. Watch more come back. Spend more time kneeling than mowing. Spend more money than I wanted to admit. And worst of all, get that annoying feeling like I was always working and never actually winning. Then I used ferrous sulfate. I mixed it carefully. 1 cup per gallon. Applied it evenly on a calm morning. Didn't water it in. Didn't rush the process. The next day the clover looked rough. Not subtle rough. Obviously rough. Darkened, stressed, shrinking. By the second day, it looked like the lawn had drawn a bright line between what belonged there and what didn't. The clover had taken the hit. The grass had not. In fact, the yard looked greener. That was the part that got me. Not just that the weeds suffered, that the lawn itself looked more alive. That's when you realize you've been taught to think of weed control and lawn improvement as two different jobs, when sometimes one treatment can push both in the right direction at once. And the cost was almost laughable compared to what people spend chasing the same result with more expensive products and more complicated routines. That's why videos on this topic explode, because people aren't just reacting to weed control. They're reacting to the feeling that they've been making a simple problem expensive for no reason. And look, I'm not saying ferrous sulfate is the only product anyone should ever use. That would be silly. Lawns have different problems. Different climates, different grass types, different weed pressures. But I am saying this: if broadleaf weeds are your main battle and you have never tried this approach, you may be overlooking one of the best low-cost treatments available to a homeowner. Now, I want to make one more important point, because this is where people either solve the problem for a week or solve it for a season. Ferrous sulfate kills what is there now. It does not build a force field around your lawn. It does not stop future weed seeds from landing. It does not magically thicken thin turf by itself forever. It is a corrective tool, not a complete lawn system. If your lawn stays thin, weak, compacted, underfed, or badly mowed, weeds will continue trying to move in. Maybe not the same weeds, maybe not right away, but the opening is still there. Weeds love empty space. They love weak turf. They love lawns that are alive, but not competitive. So if you really want fewer weeds long-term, the goal is not just to kill them. The goal is to create a lawn dense enough that new invaders struggle to get established in the first place. That means mowing correctly. That means feeding intelligently. That means correcting pH if needed. That means watering in a way that grows roots instead of dependence. That means understanding whether your problem is broadleaf weeds, grassy weeds, moss pressure, shade pressure, or soil pressure. In other words, the product is useful, but the principle is bigger. And if you start thinking in principles, you get better results every season. So here's the recap that actually matters. If your lawn is loaded with broadleaf weeds and you want a low-cost treatment that can hit those weeds while often improving the color of your grass, ferrous sulfate deserves your attention. Mix it properly. Apply it evenly. Use a pump sprayer. Avoid hot midday conditions. Keep water off it long enough to work. Expect fast visual changes. Don't pretend it solves grassy weeds. Respect the staining risk. Respect the soil. And use it as part of a bigger lawn strategy, not as a magic wand for every problem under the sun. That's how smart homeowners use it. Not by chasing hype, by understanding what the product actually does. And once you do, it's hard to walk through a garden center the same way again, because suddenly you realize how many people are spending premium money on basic outcomes. If this helped you, subscribe, because I've got more coming, and it all connects. I'm Eli Yoder, and my goal is simple: help you build a lawn that looks better, without draining your wallet or trapping you in a cycle of expensive guesswork. And tell me below what weed is taking over your yard right now. If it's broadleaf, this might be your answer. If it's something else, I'll point you in the right direction. Because the fastest way to waste money in lawn care is treating every problem like it's the same problem. And the fastest way to get a lawn you're actually proud of is learning which tool solves which fight. This one just happens to be one of the cheapest, fastest, and most satisfying tools you can use.